Okay, so this is a drawing of Laura from one of my favorite TV shows, Carmilla. I'm starting with a sketch. I created this brush myself. This is in firealpaca, so I created this brush myself. No, I don't know how to share it or remember how to create a brush anymore. But yeah, um, I started with a blue sketch layer and then I went to red. Um, that's just, I think it's just easier to differentiate between the two. Um, I used a reference from the first episode's thumbnail. You can watch the full series on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description. So then I started on line art. The brush I use for line art is just like the regular brush that doesn't have any opacity changing. I use size 11 and the correction of 8. Yeah. Um, so even when I was doing line art, I was like messing with the proportions, and as you'll be able to see during this process, um, I still like created more layers just to make the face right and put the features where they're supposed to be, and I think that did add more accuracy to my drawing. Um, I I I played around with the negative space around the eyes to make it look accurate to my reference. Um, and then I created this new layer and I started drawing out the shadows with this dark red. And I'm not sure, I don't remember why I started to do that. I think it helped me get the face structure, like the depth, correct. But yeah, I needed to use that lower layer for the neck and the button-up shirt, using the shadow layer again. Um, yeah, I was listening to Spotify when I was drawing, so yeah. I will put a link to the playlist I was listening to, which was a playlist from Umbrella Academy, which honestly just has a lot of rather good songs. So here's me fixing the proportions again with this extra layer, and also fixing this button-up shirt. Adding some ears, even though you don't see them because you see parts of them behind the hair, and so in order to see parts of them, you need to draw them. There's another song recommendation, and I start in on the hair. That's a completely different layer, so that I can make some hair blocks. I ended up with like a whole bunch of different sketch layers. So I had the original 2, and then I had one for just like more structure for the face and the neck and the body, and then I had another one for the hair. So that's about 4. So here when I'm making these blocks of hair, I'm tapering these lines, and I'm doing that myself. There's some brushes which do that automatically, but I like to do that myself. Um, but yeah, here I'm just doing that on the side. This is the other layer, and then I'm coming in with the shading on the hair. Yeah, I made so many extra layers just to help with the form, make it look more accurate. Um, yeah. So, yeah, the hair was just a lot of lines to show the form of it. Because I wasn't about to draw every single strand, and that meant a lot of tapering of the lines I was drawing. I added more shading, then I'm just kneading up that shading now. Oh yeah, picture book is by the Kinks, by the way. So funny story. While I was recording this, I actually made the executive decision to also host a video call with some friends. So after this point, my whole coloring uh experience was pretty laggy. So I go a little bit slower in this part just because I was trying to run both a video call and a screen recorder. Now you might ask, why would you do that? And I will say that is a good question. But I had fun, so uh-huh. I made some color swatches and I barely used them because I originally was planning on doing some soft shading, which is when you do it looks kind of like painterly style. So that's why I swatched a whole bunch of different colors, but I ended up just sticking to cell shading, which is when you have some hard shadows, with no blending out. That was because I'd already done those shadows earlier in that separate layer with the dark red, so it didn't make sense to do different shadows. I'm coloring here with a size 15 brush. It's it's basically the same brush I used for the line art, but it doesn't have any correction to it, and it's slightly bigger. Yeah, so I'm using the second color that I have picked for all of these color swatches, except for the eyes, which I'm using the lighter color. I used the same color for um, the eyes as the buttons, or at least I plan to. I forget if I actually did that. Did I? I'm gonna watch. I mean, it looks like maybe I did. Right. Okay, there. So I turned on the shading. Now I'm just making it look nicer, kneading it out, and I'm not sure if I've turned on the multiply effect yet, but I do that and I play with the opacity a little, and I also make it a clipping mask so that it's only over top of what I've colored and it doesn't bleed over onto the background. I spent a lot of time debating whether I should keep it like this or transition to, or try to do some soft shading, but I didn't want to do any more, so I just kept it with the cell shading. And I'm actually pretty proud with how this turned out because I haven't really been doing a lot of art since like September-ish, beginning of September-ish, because that's when school started. So this is pretty good for like a couple month art hiatus. And the finished piece should be coming up soon after I mess around with the shading a bit more. Yeah, alright. That's the color of the shading I used. So then flip it back to multiply, mess with the opacity, and then final picture coming up. There we go. Look at that.